Hello, Oiler Nation. This is Deven Stover here with head men's basketball coach Charlie Ernst here on Oiler Outlook. At the end of the season, Coach, I feel like it just started.
Not for me.
Yeah.
It's but it is hard to believe. You and I sat here, and obviously I spoke with Tim and Jeremiah and people on your staff, but. It doesn't seem that long ago when I was talking about a new system and what that would look like with a lot of new players, and here we are. It's not so new anymore.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, let's get into it. So, looking at the game from last night from Ashland, when you strip away the final score of the Ashland game and you look at just your team's body language, decision making, execution in those big moments, what did that game really tell you about where your team stands heading into this last game?
Well, we as I told them, there's been a lot of games this year where we have not owned our opponent, but had the upper hand on our opponent in the last couple minutes of the game and come out on the good side. And last night was not one of them. With 2 minutes to play, just over 2 to play in the game, it was a tie game.
Yep.
And we had the ball, and we didn't convert. They take the ball in transition and hit a 3, and when you're playing on an opponent's home floor and the crowd gets into the game, now I think we did cut it back to 1. We just couldn't get stops, and I thought we panicked a little bit in our shot selection in the last couple minutes of the game. But all that being said, the date of last night's game was February 27th. It took till the second last game of the season for this team, our team, to lose on the road in this conference.
Yeah, that is true.
That is very, very difficult
to
do.
Yeah.
And we almost got out of there with a win. So I think I don't think there's anything to panic about. I think sometimes the ball goes your way and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes calls go your way and they don't.
Yep.
It's a game we could have won, but it's also a game that we could have lost. And give Ashland credit, they made the plays down the stretch.
They definitely did. They definitely did. And speaking of next opponent, now every opponent presents a challenge, but sometimes the battle is internal. So heading into this next game, how do you feel about Lake Erie? That matchup is more about countering what the opponent does well or about your team proving something to itself?
I think this game's more about us. And that's not at all. In fact, I have tremendous respect for Lake Erie and what they're doing this year.
Yes, of course.
And of course, their head coach, Kyle Conley, is a good friend of mine. He was on our staff, and and I love what Kyle's done there. And ironically enough, they've used a similar approach as us. And to be honest, everyone thinks him and I conjured this up and talked about it over the offseason. I had no idea they were going to do this until their opener, and he would tell you the same about us. So it just so happened, that we were both thinking the same thing. But I think all that being said, anytime, it really doesn't differ who the Saturday opponent is.
Yeah.
With a one-day opportunity to prepare, because we put all of our eggs in our Thursday basket.
Yep.
We've done it all year. This week was no different. And so the Saturday game becomes more about us. And in this case, it's not just about our execution, but it's about our mental approach.
Yes.
And I think those things go hand in hand, 50-50 one way or another. So that's going to be our focus today, is on us.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, now every season has its defining moments. So times whether a team either hardens or cracks. So as a coach, how do you sense when one of those moments is happening, and how do you make sure your team walks away from it without any lingering doubts?
Yeah, there's been a couple of those moments this year where, after we lost to Ferris State, I think there was a moment in there where, when we went to Walsh early in the year, I think our team was still unsure, internally, how good could we be? We were young, a bit untested, and the one, we had a couple tests. In fact, winning at Wayne State was a big test. And then I think, we lost a couple home games, and the one that comes to mind is the Thomas More game,
Yep.
because we had to turn around then on the Saturday and go to Hillsdale.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which at the time was a monumental task. Big crowd at Hillsdale, and we delivered. And so I thought that was one of those games at the time that I thought, boy, this is one of those turning point games. And so we've had numerous times. Sometimes as a coach, you don't even know when those games are going to be. You look back after the season and realize, So we're going to prepare for this game not so much as though it has a big bearing on the future. These guys have had great preparation all season long. They've been able to turn the page, and I think they'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. And then last question here, Coach. With this being the final regular season game, beyond X's and O's, what do you want this team to leave on the court, not just in terms of execution, but in identity?
Yeah, I don't know that we have played together. I think we're a very unselfish group, and trying to communicate this properly is the key. I think we're a very unselfish team, but I think because of maybe our youth and our lack of really internal poise and grit in the moment, in the key moments, I think we have to pass up good shots for great shots. And I don't think we've done that really that well over the last month. We've won games because we've defended pretty consistently. We've rebounded both ends pretty consistently and gotten ourselves extra opportunities on offense and so forth. So we've won games in different ways. But I think the next step for our team is an ability to share the ball really well. Our assist total has been going down rapidly, and I don't think it's because of selfish play, but I think it's guys trying to make plays. And when your focus is solely on that in the moment of truth, normally in February, because of scouting reports and technology, it's hard to get a good shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we gotta find a way to get back to sharing the ball, trying to find great shots on each possession, but still doing that with pace and tempo.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, that's hard. But you know what? We're 28 games in. The expectations are higher.
Yes.
We can do that. And I think for us to be successful against Lake Erie, we're going to have to do that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, Coach. We'll all be tuning in tomorrow, and good luck.
All right. Thanks, Deven.
Of course. This has been Deven J. Stover, and head men's basketball coach here, Charlie Ernst on Oiler Outlook.